Hey there, Julian McBain here, and this is my 16th Saturday vlog. And actually, this is a re-recording of the 16th Saturday vlog because the last version of it I just wasn't satisfied with. So, real quick, we're on Monria still. We are going to be hunting in this crater here. So here's the main crater. We're down here hunting cultists, doing the cultist daily. And in Sunday's video, I'll be doing the Cave in Sunday's video. Very soon I will be doing a video showing how to get the teleporters to go to these various craters. But not today. So, before we really get into it, I'd like you to please do me a favor. First, I want you to pause the video, scroll down, and subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. We're aiming for 100 subscribers before the end of April. It is, as of the release of this video, it will be March 30th. I do believe. Yes, that is correct. So that gives us 32 days to reach that goal. So please, if you haven't subscribed to me, you watch my stuff, you're liking it and enjoying it, please subscribe. It looks like I forgot to empty my inventory yesterday. That's fine. It really helps me out. Then, see, I got you. It's a two-parter. Then I want you to go down into the description of the video and click on the link to Critical Links. Guys, her work is amazing. In her shop, she has all manner of fandom-inspired jewelry, both video games and TV shows. And if you don't find something that quite fits your style, or you don't find the fandom you're looking for, she does custom work. She'll consult with you over the weave and the colors and the theme of the thing that you need made, and she'll make you a truly unique piece fitting the fandom you want to represent. Hey, I bet with a little work and a little imagination, you could even come up with Entropia Universe inspired pieces. Because, I mean, let's face it, Entropia Universe is a very diverse set of planets. So, between the two of you, I'm sure you'll be able to come up with something representing your favorite planet in the Entropia Universe. That's Critical Links. For all of your fandom jewelry inspired needs, Critical Links, tell her Julian sent you. Okay. So, tough choices. Throughout our lives, we are sometimes presented with a set of choices, and it can be incredibly tough to know what the correct course of action is. You know, and the reason I'm talking about this is currently I'm faced with a tough choice, and it's a good tough choice, but it's a tough choice. And I'm not entirely sure which side of the decision I'm going to make. And so it got me to thinking, well, you know, throughout our lives, we're always faced with choices that we may or may not like. You know, whether you have to choose between work and family, if you have to choose between a job that pays more or one that gives better benefits. Sometimes it's Hobson's choice. You know, you have to move away in order to make enough to support. And that's happened before. So, you know, how do we process these tough choices, and how do we come to a decision when we don't necessarily know what the right path is? Because, you know, life throws you conundrums. And the answer isn't always obvious. You can't predict what's going to happen down each path. Whoops, I do not want to be attacking leprechauns. No, I don't want to attack the leprechaun. That's what I forgot. You notice how I'm always targeting the leprechauns, but for some reason the cultist doesn't get targeted? Come on, Mind Dark. Speaking of which, I want to give a shout out to Slick, Morgan Slick Gecko. He donated this leprechaun to me, newly tamed. Fed him some Nutrio bars, and he is more than happy to follow me around. Thank you so much. But anyway, back to tough choices. Drop a comment down below. When faced with a choice that's really tough, like you have a hard time coming up with what the right direction is, you don't know what the extended consequences of that decision are going to be, how do you suss it out and come to a decision? How do you suss it out and come to a decision? Do you flip a coin? Do you look at the one that offers the most pros or the fewest cons? Do you try to assess, okay, this is what's going to happen in 5 years if I take route A, and this is what could happen in 5 years if I take route B? Because we all have different methods of figuring out the best route to go. And no individual route is perfect or necessarily more right. But it's one of those things where you have to take a look at the process and go, okay, here's the good and here's the bad if I take choice A. And here's the good and here's the bad if I take choice B. And you have to weight those pros and cons accordingly. Because, you know, okay, if I take route A, then I'll use 2 gallons less of gas, as opposed to if I take route B, I don't have to worry about, you know, getting injured. So you have to make sure that they're weighted appropriately. And then you kind of set them on the scale. And then you also have to look at your time horizon, because short-term risk can often lead to long-term gain. And it's not always obvious what the risks would be. You know, of course there's monetary risk and there's physical risk, and I'm not interested in killing leprechauns, so I'm going to go this way. And there's also reputational risk. You know, if you say you're going to do something and then it's completely untenable for some reason, you can lose your reputation, or at least some of your reputation, over the fact that you didn't do something you said you were going to. Or if you accept a deal and then you realize that the deal wasn't what you thought it was, and then you have to back out of the deal, you can lose your reputation that way, which is extremely dangerous if you're under contract. That can cost you. But before you sign contract, like if it's a handshake deal and you say, you know what, I really looked at this and I'm afraid I'm going to have to not do this, that's definite reputational risk there. And it could be monetary risk too. So how do you come to those tough decisions? And I think what it comes down to is we each have to decide, what are we ultimately looking for out of what we're looking at? And sometimes we don't know. Like, we'll know to a certain extent. Maybe you're irritated with something, you're trying to get away from that thing, or maybe you're looking for better opportunity, or maybe you're looking for more money, or maybe you're looking for a way to spend more time or less time around your family, or something of that nature. And so, you know, maybe it's an opportunity to network that you wouldn't have otherwise had, but it means you're going to have less time at home. These are all things that you kind of have to weigh out, and I guess I'm just kind of being overly broad here. But, you know, like all my vlogs, this is kind of allowing me to organize this thought process in my head, because I've got a big decision that I have to make, and both have tangible benefits to them. And each has a significant possible drawback. And so, trying to suss out, okay, how do we weigh those benefits versus the drawbacks that are attached to them? And how do we make sure that we're making the right choice? And, you know, maybe there isn't a right or a wrong choice. Maybe it's just one of those situations where we have to figure out, you know, in this situation, is this what's best for me? And I know all decisions are technically like that, but there are always other factors involved. You know, spouses, children, bills, taxes. There's always taxes. 2 things are guaranteed in life, and that's death and taxes. Maybe that's why I play a Death Knight, because that just, you know, gets me closer to one of those lifelong inevitabilities and lets me have a dark sense of humor about it. That's why I wear a skull mask, even in Entropia Universe. Maybe what it comes down to isn't always just the sheer logic. Because logic's a major part of a person's life, but there's other things involved too, right? There's emotion. And maybe in this case, it comes down to which feels more correct. Would making a choice leave a bad taste in one's mouth? Oh, excuse me. Because that's a factor too, right? You know, you can make a choice and you think it's the right one, but in the end you realize that, yeah, it was a good choice, but I got a bad taste in my mouth about it, you know? Like, not that you were wrong, but you could have been more right. Oh, cool. That was... So... how do you avoid that feeling? Well, you have to weigh it out in your mind, and you have to really think about what the consequence of the choice is going to be. You know, I've learned the hard way, but that doing things on a whim will inevitably run into trouble. It will inevitably run you into trouble. And I mean, that's how, you know, that's why 20-somethings, young adults, 18 to 30, get in so much trouble when they're younger, because they don't think through the possible consequences of what they do. And then you turn 31 and you almost overthink everything, and you're like, oh my god, I was such a screw off for the first 12 years of my life. And of course you are, because that's the human nature. But you know, you think about it, you start to overthink things. And it's like, okay, if I do this way, in 3 years it could be this, and in 5 years it could be that, and in 20 years I could be dead. And so it's, you know, it's almost neuroticism, I guess would be the best term for it. Although I know that's a specific one of the big 5 personality traits. But in this case, it's almost appropriate to be that neurotic about it. You know, what is ultimately going to be the consequence of this action? Because it all depends on what the plan is, and the plan can change. You know, you could have these huge plans, so you take an action and you expect something to happen, and then suddenly someone throws you a curveball. And maybe you committed to the action before the curveball was thrown. And that curveball forces you to reassess the commitment to the action because you didn't have all the necessary information. And why didn't you gather that information? Well, there's a couple of reasons. It could be fear. It could be fear of not wanting to upset someone, or, you know, job loss, losing your home, losing your relationship. It could be come on, thank you. Not ignorance. Well, what's the word I'm looking for? Neglect. You could neglect to look for it. Neglect isn't the right word. Neglecting to look for the information you should have. We'll just call it neglect. I'm sure that you guys will probably comment down below and say, it was this word, and you know what, please do. Or it could be sheer apathy. And then, you know, at the time that you make that commitment to action, and then someone provides the piece of information and you're like, oh shit, I should have looked into this before I made that choice. And so coming up with the appropriate action isn't always as easy or as clear as we think. So what do? Well, you can't not act, although inaction is a form of action. And honestly, from my perspective, and this has always been my perspective, although I've not always been right, and sometimes I've been wrong. Sometimes you don't have a choice but to act, and inaction will be worse than an action in the wrong direction. You know, sometimes you choose not to act because you feel that you don't have all the information, or you feel that you're not in a position to make the choice. And sometimes that's the right thing to do. That's often a very measured way to look at things. When in doubt, oftentimes doing nothing at all is the best choice. Because yes, you might have a negative impact from not doing anything, but any positives that come out of incorrect, or any positives that could come out of correct action could easily be negated by an unforeseen circumstance that would make an otherwise correct action an incorrect one. And when you're put in that situation, you have to weigh the possible benefits versus the possible catastrophes that could occur by making that choice. And even if it's not catastrophic, even if it's just a mild negative, like, I don't know, you drove one too many miles and now your car needs an extra tune-up, or you know for a fact that the battery's going to die somewhere along the way, and that means you need to make an extra stop, and you're out there for a couple days and you break down because you knew your vehicle wasn't going to be able to make it. But I don't know, man. It's been so long since I've had to make such a critical choice. Because usually when such things come up, the choice is already made. And by that I mean the status quo isn't an option. Even inaction will lead to inevitability. It just means it will be slower. And oftentimes harder. And so, being placed in this position, I'm trying to suss out, you know, how does one make a choice of this, of like this? And yes, I'm being deliberately vague. I am being deliberately vague, and part of the reason for that is because there are certain aspects of my life that I like to keep, like my professional life, I like to keep off of YouTube. And this involves my day job. And so I'm not going to get into too much detail, but for lack of a better term, I'm facing two opposing tracks. And so now I need to come to the decision of which track to take. And it's not easy. It's not easy at all. And so I figure by kind of coming up with a methodology to go through everything and talking it out, you know, bouncing my ideas off the YouTube, maybe I could suss out what the best course of action is, or at least the best way to determine the best course of action. Because oftentimes that's often what prevents us from coming up with a good solution. It's not the fact that we don't have the solution or have a way to do it. It's we haven't figured out the best manner to come up with the solution. No. oftentimes people will wait to the last second and then pick at random, and that's the worst possible way to do things. You know, even with a forking branch, you know, allowing a random number generator to come up with the solution, half the time you're going to be right, and that's, you know, odds on, that's not a terrible set of odds, but what if there's more than one branch? And what if there is something that would be seen if you took the time to look at things and you don't see it because you just decide at random to do course A or course B? So then the real question lies is, how do you overcome that? How do you create that system of decision making? How do you build a foundation upon which to set the pillars so you can look at the two choices clearly? And I don't know, man. This is tough stuff. Yeah, someone's flying out in a quad wing. That's unusual. Shout out to Pia Soraja or Saraha Lee. Thanks for listening to me ramble, guys, if you're still with me. This has been, this has literally been my whole week. This has literally been my whole week. So, being able to just kind of to bounce my ideas off the community is really nice. So I appreciate you sticking with me, and if you do drop a comment, I appreciate it. If you don't drop a comment, great. But yeah, it never occurred to me that there might have to be a system of decision making, a systematic method to make a tough decision. You know what it is? I have been watching too many psychology lectures lately. That's what it is. I'm re-listening to the audio of 12 Rules for Life. I need to go back and listen to the rest of Carl Jung's book that I purchased, but because I buy the audiobook so I can listen to them while I walk, and that allows me to multitask. And the problem being that Carl Jung's book, it's incredibly dense, which is good. I can handle dense. And the problem is I can only listen to the reader for a short time. And and I don't know if it's the way the book was recorded or if it's just the way the reader is reading it. I just have a hard time focusing on his words. And it might be because it's a psychology text, and as much as I love listening and reading to psychology texts are dull. Like, seriously dull. Back when I was in college, we're talking 2005, I'm taking Intro to Psychology. This is the first psychology course I ever took. And one of two official courses I took, the other one being Abnormal Psychology. So I'm reading this book, and my roommate described it to me as such, because I woke up with the book behind me. It had been in front of me. I'd been laying on my bed. The book behind me, I was on my side. And it wasn't at head level. It was like my waist. And my roommate says, "Good morning." And it's like 4:30 in the afternoon, right? And I said, "How long have I been out?" And he goes, "A good hour." And I said, "Ugh." And I look around for my book. He goes, "Yeah, first you used it as a pillow, and then you covered up with it like a blanket, and then it fell off you." Shit. He was a good man. I lost touch with him after college, and I mean, I did a lot of stupid things in college, so that's not surprising. He was much smarter than I was when it came to college life. I didn't have the drive that I should have, even though I was 21 and I had worked, you know, for several years. It was a retail job, you know, but nothing terrible. You know, it had given me a work ethic, and I had a good work ethic, but I made some mistakes, and sure enough, I'm pretty sure he ended up going into the Air Force, so I hope he's doing well. But yeah, that was my first experience with psychology, falling asleep on psychology texts, which could be the problem with me listening to the Carl Jung text while I'm trying to walk, because it's a fascinating subject. It really is. It's an incredibly fascinating subject. But I don't know, I can't find an interesting psychology text. You know, even the abnormal psychology text, and you don't get much more interesting than abnormal psychology when it comes to the way the brain works. You know, you're talking deep-seated, extreme psychoses. Psychopathy, sociopathy, oh gosh, schizophrenia, borderline personality disorder. These are all things explored in abnormal psychology, and so it's a really interesting set of subject matter. But they couldn't make the textbook interesting. So I need to go back and I need to give it another shot, and I'm re-listening to 12 Rules for Life. So once that's done, I'll go back and try again. And of course, Jung came after Freud. And honestly, I think what it was is Freud, strictly speaking, I guess, wasn't really a psychologist. He was a medical doctor. But he invented, like, probably I would say, if I had to make a guess, Freud is probably responsible for at least 50% of all modern psychology. And if there's a psychologist or a psychology student that is watching this, please correct me. Please. Because I'm making an educated guess just based on the amount of Freudian psychology I've had to read. Not only throughout the classes I've taken, the official classes I've taken, but throughout the lectures I've listened to voluntarily on YouTube. And so I lost my train of thought. Freud, Jung. I don't know. I can't remember. I had a thought and I lost it. So, you know, I think this is a good place to kind of end the video. Guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, and yes, subscribe down below. As of Friday morning, or Friday evening, I should say, I had 71 subscribers. So please, I only have 29 to go. We have 32 days. Come on, please. If you're watching, you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Hit the subscribe button. Again, please make sure you visit my website, www.mcbainmanor.com. And while you're there, click on the option to read Ghosts of the Past. It is downloadable and it is free. It's also copywritten and has an ISBN number. Keep that in mind. But yeah, please download it, give it a read. That's all I got, guys. Visit Critical Links and go buy some jewelry. You all are awesome. Have a wonderful night.